This was clearly not the plan. To be embarrassed, and I ain't living up to the standard that's apparent. No room for excuses, only improvements. But sit with me a moment before you jump to your conclusions on how we got here. We could start from the top, we could start with the sacks, we could start with the drops, we could start to the shots, to a target that's draped. Regardless, let me talk to what's really at stake, and that's legacy. Trying to fill the role of the one that stood ahead of me. Whole city want the one took after me instead of me, and rightfully so, my homie like that. And let them tell it about me, I'ma be right back. Exchange my struggles for a rifle, that's a light pack. And I just smile and show humility despite that. Yeah, they think I'm soft, think I'm weak. My confidence is rooted in belief. They call me the one, I live to the hype. Now they tryna tell me that the choice isn't right. Tell me did I lose it? Well, did I lose it? I gotta be myself, don't care what they say, cause I'm the only person that can stand in the way. Tell me, did I lose it? So did I lose it? Once there was a man on a journey, made some fatal mistakes in a hurry, sent away from all of his worries, like succeeding what many saw was Billy Graham in a jersey, to the abyss, until he reappeared proven worthy. That was me, so I know where you been. What kind of sort of the difference is that you think it, but I knew I was him. Knew I would smack the competition that blend. Knew I would change the Carolinas and the league before the laces would spin. And it wasn't easy. They brought me back after releases if they didn't need me. And then they got you, and respectfully, the whole thing just feel like a waste. A press release about a trade they tried to play in my face. 7 years in the desert with no chance of escape. And a fan base that sees it as an utter disgrace. Just be patient with them, they don't deserve it. But it's on you, you gotta earn it. They call me the one, I live to the hype. Now they tryna tell me that the choice isn't right. Tell me, did I lose it? Well, did I lose it? I gotta be myself, don't care what they say, cause I'm the only person that can stand in the way. Tell me, did I lose it? So did I lose it? Y'all tell me, man. Y'all tell me, cause I don't know. What's up, y'all? This is John from the One Carolina Show. Thank y'all for stopping by on this tough afternoon, man. Tough afternoon. I appreciate y'all tapping in with me. Man, this was, I was listening to the Twitter Spaces at like halftime of the game or whatever. And shout out to Vash Ty and Sheena Quick, all the people that show up on the Twitter Spaces. I enjoy listening to those because you get so many different perspectives. And somebody said something that made a lot of sense, and I agree with this wholeheartedly. I agree, but I will say with a caveat, and we'll go through it. But when I was listening to the space, they were like, "This feels like the Lions team that was like losing game after game after game," but you could just tell like you saw progress happening every single week. Consistent progress. And that's what you love to see. You love to see progress, right? But it seems to me, in some respects, that the progress is impeded on some ends and the progress went substantially greater on others, right? And we're going to get more into that in a second. But first, I want to shout out to a few people in the chat. Shout out to Carl D. Ghost Daddy, what's going on? Anthony Montgomery, I appreciate you tapping in. Metal Crip, appreciate you coming by. Christian, what's good? I want to highlight this really quick. So, Carl D said Bryce has been balling for more than a few games now. Now the haters can stop saying it's only a couple of games. I agree. And then someone else said, or actually you said the same thing. Where's the guest who came on last week and said he would stop being a Bryce hater if Bryce proves himself against Philly? That was my boy Poppin from the Black Cat Panther podcast. Salute to them. So yeah, that was him. And I believe that, that's probably going to be his sentiment. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what he thought about what he saw. I mean, personally, I think it's hard to walk away and look at that and not think what you just said, right? But who knows? I know this. I know that I'm going to play. So I'm sure y'all have already watched the Dave Canales press conference, but I want to react to it because I got some stuff I want to say, stuff that might not be popular, but I don't care. Because, yeah. So let's get to it.
Knocking on the door, defense gets us the ball back. Felt like we were going to be 97 yards with a chance to win right there, and I think the things we talk about every week, we got to take care of the ball. We had that critical interception. They turned it into 7 points, and that ends up being kind of the flip of the game right there. And against a really good team on the road at their place, just the margin of error is so tight, especially.
Hey, real quick, I don't know if this is the first time y'all can actually hear me. I thought I had unmuted myself, but if I didn't, and I'm now not muted, I apologize about that, but I'm here.
In the NFL in general, but when you're playing an excellent team like the Eagles, we have to find a way to have that consistency all the way throughout. And that's our pursuit. That's what we're after, is to try to find a way to continue to take care of the ball and make our plays, and of course, the Eagles had another great day rushing the ball, which ended up,
Indeed.
The time of possession ended up kind of them controlling it in that regard. So it's something, again, that we just have to continue to look at and try to shore up.
Were you told anything about the lack of a challenge on that ruled incompletion by X?
I was not.
No, because it was a clear drop. I mean, you can see it. If you're where that, not the line judge, maybe he pulled up a little bit, but if you're in that line of sight to see that, you can see clear as day that was a drop. The ball bounced off the ground. So, no, I understand that. I understand why there wasn't any kind of challenge or anything like that, because that one was pretty clear cut.
Were you surprised that they didn't at least have New York take a look at it?
I thought that would have been the protocol, but, the ball moved around a little bit. I think we saw that. The officials saw it. We saw it on the sideline. We just thought it was close. So, but again, they'll have to look at it and go from there. Absolutely. That's a big play we're counting on. And, he'd be the first one to tell you he's got to make that play. And Bryce steps up, makes a beautiful throw, in the situation, had the coverage we wanted, all that. And so those are the plays that we just got to find a way to make, for us to get back on the winning column.
I know you're a guy that if there's a player out on the field, he has to make plays, but he did have that hit early on in the game when the blue tent. What did you hear back about that blue tent visit and then, the decision to play him the rest of the game?
They evaluated him for a concussion. He cleared all the necessary protocols, so they were very cautious with that and felt like he could get back out there, and he did. He got back out and played, made a critical catch on a third down, to keep us alive there, and I would have loved to seen him make that play.
What's your message to him? I know he's a young player. I know this is fresh, but he's had a couple of intercepted catches that he's come out on the winning end of. How do you kind of talk him through that and make sure his confidence doesn't take a hit?
Just we're counting on him. Just go right to it and just let him know you're a huge part of what we're doing here. And playing the X position. It's you get targets. And you get a lot of opportunities over there. And so just making the most of those. But full confidence in Xavier to continue to just take steps. And these are all things that we take and we learn and we grow. And I truly believe we'll be in high stakes games someday, playing against great players, great teams.
Agreed. All right, cool. And salute to Pop, because I agree with you 100%, Pop. I know you ain't a hater. I know for a fact you ain't a hater. If there's anybody that's not a hater, if there ever was not a hater, it is Pop, right? And I agree wholeheartedly that you should feel bad after losing 8 years straight. But unfortunately, and Pop, you my man, but unfortunately, here's something I got to say. And I'm going to add my homeboy to the show in just a second. Not Pop, but it's somebody else. But unfortunately, this is what I also have to say. I feel like what has happened is that the weight of expectation of a 7-year-long drought in the playoffs, of absolute just terrible quarterback play, of just horrible, decision making, all this other kind of stuff by this organization has laid rest on the shoulders of a 5'10" dude. I really believe that, right? I think there's an expectation. Now, Pop, I ain't saying that this is you, but I'm just keeping it a buck about the situation. That we have looked at him to say, okay, if this guy is as great as he can be, then our success should be equal to that. And we clearly see today was more proof that that is not the case, right? And really my biggest issue with the Dave Canales thing is that, I've always been a firm believer that the love should be just as loud as the critique. Now, obviously, and Charlemagne, I've heard say this a million times. People love, the truth is not entertaining as the lie, right? Even if it's not necessarily a lie, if it's just salacious, the truth is never going to ring as loud, right? But to me, I understand, look, the turnover was the difference in the game. That was the difference. We can say that out loud. It's all right to say that. The turnover was the difference. But my goodness, from the 5-yard line, a play on third down when you got to have it. Another play to Adam Thielen. We've seen that same little fake look, Adam Thielen runs a corner route. Bryce Young just a layered throw over top of a linebacker. And then a humongous drop by XL. I don't want to hear nothing else about 9. Nothing. Today was proof. And salute to my man Pop. That's one of my favorite people, not just on the internet, in the world, period. That's my man. But I ain't hearing nothing else about Pop. About Bryce. My man Pop, hey, look, we got conversations to have, brother. There'll be time for that. The problem that I have with the Canales situation is this. I'm not saying that you got to go hard in the paint against XL. But this has not been a one-time thing. This has been consistent, which is why you see this. Look at what Shannon Sharp said right here. Leggett got to stop making those plays. Enough of this my bad-ish next time. That was the next time. That was the game. If he catches that ball right there, it is Rap City. And look, yes, he's a rookie. I'm giving him a pass. Me and Pop, we talked about this. You and I talked about this just the other day. If you draft someone like Ted McMillan, Luther Burden, somebody like that, I caught y'all show the other day where y'all were talking about Luther Burden. I like him, right? But I was saying to myself, okay, well, if you draft him, what about XL? Because if you draft Ted McMillan, that's your X, period. What about XL? And when I see this, hey, look, sometimes you might just be like, hey, what about him? What about him? The plays got to be made. They got to be made. That's a hands catch. To me, that's the difference. This play is the difference between you being, let me see how I say this. This is the difference between you being AJ or being Julio because of your size and just the archetype, or you being a tight end, or you potentially not even being in the league. This the kind of stuff right here that is game defining, because on the biggest stage, bro, you make that catch right there with all the dollar bill stuff. If he did that right there, you a household name. But consequently, you do the other thing, and you also a household name. Because the people that have not been watching us all year were watching this game, right? And we see it. The national media is starting to talk. Yo, this was kind of the stuff that we saw from Xavier Leggett in South Carolina. Body man. Pause. Right? Now that's a hard catch. I'm gonna stall him out, because that's a tough catch to make, especially when you 6'3", 290, plus pounds. And I like the fact that he was even in position to make the catch in the first place. So I want to salute him and show him some love. But at the same time, it's like, yo, that's a catch you got to make. That is a catch you have to make. So I'm going to welcome to the show my man, Keeb. Keeb, I appreciate you coming through, man. Look, man, what's your thoughts, bro? Quick reaction.
You gotta take the punches where you can. You got to walk, and just it's another day. It's I mean, I briefly I just went shopping just to clear my mind off because it's one of those things where it's like you can get upset about like certain things.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk about the catch, but we've seen. I mean, if you put this game in a retrospect throughout the entire season, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can get up, like we can really get upset at. We can really just blame the team on, and we shot ourselves in the foot with a lot of the shenanigans that we did in the beginning of the season, trying to figure things out. you know and we are in a position where right now a lot of the fans are upset. Some are upset and some are like, hey, it's one of those games, you just gotta move on, right? What are
Mm-hmm.
we really playing for? What are we trying to accomplish here that has many people upset? Like, I get it. Like there is Dave Canales is a first year head coach, working throughout the grunts, and Bryce Young. It looked like one of those games where it's like a game managing game. You have one of the best defenses on the other side, who's you're matched up against. And what where are we right now in terms of the consistency? There's a lot of questions to be had moving forward. A lot of draft picks that we are 11. We're sitting with 11 draft picks. We have a lot of questions that need to be answered. Who stays on this team? It always takes me back to this one moment, right, during the offseason where it says we need dogs on our team. Well, I've really yet to see consistency with that notion. Like, hey, these are dogs on our team that can produce at any given moment. It was heartbreaking to see that Brooks injury. I think it was a knee injury, right? Correct me if I'm mistaken. But I can't hear you. Hold up.
All right, my bad. All right, so yeah, no, Newell. I was reading a comment from Newell Corleone who said he was. I meant to say 230. My bad, bro. But I said 290. Can you imagine XL at 290, bro? That'd be crazy. But no. So yeah, I agree with just about everything you said there. I do give some credence and I give some space for the fact that these guys are growing. They're rookies, so it's going to be a learning curve, right? But expectation is expectation. The only thing that I want scales to be leveled evenly, or levied evenly, I should say.
Sure, sure,
Because
sure.
Keeb, you and I have had multiple conversations off platform where we have talked over and over and over again about the stuff that was surrounding Bryce Young. And to me, I feel like it's got like, look, we haven't seen a full season of Xavier Lee yet. He's gonna be
No,
okay.
no.
You could, now what I can tell you is this. To me, this is something that can get better, right? Like, I remember when Jamar Chase was struggling with drops early, like in the preseason and people thought like, oh man, this is gonna be an issue, right? And then Jamar turned it around. Well, one, there was continuity with the fact that he came into the league with the same quarterback he played with in college.
Right.
Because it wasn't just this drop. There was a drop earlier in the drive where Bryce kind of scrambled out. Remember so it was the play whenever Bryce had stepped over the line and there was they blew, he lost a down because he crossed over the line and threw a pass to Xavier Legette that he dropped. Now, Bryce scrambling around, so it was kind of like a, quick situation where he kind of had to, react in real time. And then he did it again and hit Legette. So Legette kind of learned, like, all right, I need to be able to make myself available for this guy to be able to, find me when he's moving around and doing all this shifty stuff. There's nobody that Xavier Legette has played with that does that kind of thing. So this is going to be a development for him as well. That's one of the reasons why I'm giving Legette a pass on this, because it's like, yo,
Sure,
you've got to learn that quarterback. And when I'm flip-flopping back and forth, but this speaks to a larger point. This is why, and I've never said this publicly, but I'm going to just go ahead and say it right now, because I know it's easy to just say this right now when, everything's starting to look better. But this is why, and you can vouch for this because you and I talked about this on the phone. This is why I was always a proponent of not pulling Bryce.
Yes.
This is the reason. I felt like he was eventually going to work through this. If the reason was that you had to get rid of Deontay Johnson, all right, cool. But I wasn't big. I don't care about those 2 games. Them 2 games don't mean nothing to me. I don't think about them 2 games. For the people that do think about those 2 games, all right, cool for you. But the reason why I always wanted it to be a consistent like growth, progress, and process is one, look, we're 3-10 now, bro. And we see clear as day, we got a franchise quarterback. So what were you going to win? Like, where were you going anyway with this roster? Right now, you just filling out guys to see who's who. So why not let him rock? Now, if it's because you're scared to lose your job, if you're Dave Canales, I get that. But man, let him rock.
I don't think that's it. This is not. And here's the problem, John. This is not anything new. We have seen multiple times. I mean, I think halfway through the season, what are we? We're on the last 4 games. The last ladder of the third year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we are. What are we playing for? That's the big question. We're not playing for anything but trying to see what we have. Halfway through, I think we kind of knew this team still has a lot to go. We have a lot of football to play in the next coming years with this young core.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just see who we have and see if we can get anything out of these, squeeze the juice out of it, if anything at all, because, it's all about, okay, yes, you can rest your guys and be healthy for next year, or you can build that consistency now. So when the off season, you know what to work on.
Right.
Dave Canales was sitting Leggett, not really starting him, and then you bench Bryce Young. There was a lot of flip flops, and then I'm not even going to mention the prior to benching him, the conversations that he had multiple times at the press conferences saying that Bryce Young is my quarterback. When there was, in terms of consistency, what was being said from the organization to the players touching the field, lack of consistency everywhere. So giving guys the space to actually go out and play, these problems could have been hashed out halfway through the year.
I agree. I think that this is something that you have to. They told us somebody told me to turn the audio up, so I just turned this up. But yeah, I agree that. Look, it's hard for me to bash Dave Canales. Like, Pop said something earlier. There was a comment that he had earlier where he said that he was tired of 8 years of mediocrity. And I think that's a sentiment of every Panther fan that exists right now. But I also think when you're Dave Canales, one, for a fact, they didn't necessarily, you weren't necessarily the person that they wanted. You're the one that they ended up with, right? And I've seen what happens when you get someone that you end up with versus someone that you're courting. You wanted Matt Rule. So Matt Rule got two and a quarter years, if you will, right? Close, should have got 3 years or, but regardless. And we had the Steve Wilkes situation, but you didn't want Steve Wilkes. Steve Wilkes was, okay, so I wanted to, all right, let me just say this. I wanted to date Matt Rule, not me personally, pause, right? But I'm saying this in reference to the situation, right?
Yeah.
Matt was the one, right? But I knew somewhere deep down in my heart, Matt be tripping, man. We go out to dinner, Matt ain't grateful, always expecting me to buy stuff, all this other kind of, what I'm saying? And so I ditch Matt. I catch Wilkes on the rebound. Wilkes perfect.
Wow.
Look, mama like Wilkes, you know what I'm saying? Everybody, they love him. Right, but I'm like, nah, that ain't good enough. That don't meet my aesthetic, right? So then I'm looking at Ben. I'm looking at Ben and Ben like, hey, look, Ben, I'm telling you, Ben will come here and change this whole thing, right? I can build a family, I can build a team, I can build a philosophy with Ben. But Ben like, hey man, if you want me, look, you got to understand the kind of people I'm around. I need a bag, bro. You gonna have to pay me it's going to have to look even crazier than the contract that you gave to the college dude, right? And he like, well, no, I can't do that because the owners was mad at me when I did that. You know what I'm saying? So I can't do that. All right, well then, who I'm going to get? Well, let me turn to this first year dude, Dave Canales. So if you Dave and you come in and your philosophy is like, yo, I'm going to take this young quarterback you got, I like him. We were looking at him in the draft. We were like, this would be a guy that we would take. Now, let's just say hypothetically that that's true. And you take Bryce Young as the coordinator or even as the head coach, right? I guarantee you this thing would have looked way different. There would have been way more what should I say, patience, with the whole development process when it comes to Bryce, it would have just looked like a whole different situation. What do you say to that?
Uh, yes and no. I mean, yeah, yeah. John, I do have to say, your metaphors and storytelling never get old. Um, but there, I do have to be honest in this particular scenario where the frustration with Dave Canales comes in. Um, it comes in with a lot of the comments that he made when generally, like, I mean, I mentioned this where I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but because we've already talked about this extensively, um, a lot of people. I actually, I mean, I don't really know what the feel is for Dave Canales throughout the entire fan base because I'm only on Twitter and I only see the people on Twitter, and there are people who are frustrated and there's people who are not frustrated. Um, the comments that were made earlier throughout the year, and it felt like just trying to please the audience and say Bryce Young is the guy, and then you completely backtrack and go 180 and say he's not the guy, and we're just gonna throw him out there to be a punching bag. So when this other guy comes back, um, he's ready to go. And this is your first overall pick, franchise quarterback, and you're just completely switching up from what you're saying. So it's kind of hard to trust what the direction. This is just my 2 cents on this. It's kind of hard to trust the future direction of this team and where we're going to go, and if we can use these players properly. If there is always a looming, thought in the back of my mind is what's going to happen next. What is Dave Canales going to do when we begin to struggle? Can he be up, can he make the rational decisions without just tossing the entire roster completely overboard? Because it wasn't necessary for a first year head coach to go out and win. The expectations were there. I mean, we know we run rampant with expectations in the offseason, but the goal wasn't to just go out there and just completely shut it down. You know, was one step at a time, consistency, build consistency,
Mm-hmm.
and move forward. You know,
Yeah.
so you know we're at a point now where we can see what we have with the contender teams, with the teams who are contending, and see exactly where our roster is. Because, I mean, our offensive line looks great. I know there was a play where Chuba Hubbard goes in for the 1 yard, and it was just a gaping hole. And these are the things that we weren't seeing last year. So there
Mm-hmm.
are upsides and positives. And, I mean, go back a year, go back 2 years. Our offensive line looks completely different.
Yes.
And that's Dan Morgan through the offseason, signing free agents and drafting guys made a whole lot of a difference. But this is what needs to happen continuously. I think when we do have that conversation about the draft and who we need to pick, because it's looming. There's really nothing else to look forward to, and it happened. And Pop said mediocrity, right? And it's yes to a degree, yes, because what do we look forward to around this time? Nothing but the draft. We
Mm-hmm.
don't really have it. We don't have playoffs to look forward to. We don't have we don't have anything. Nobody watches the Pro Bowl anyway. So it's usually the draft. We're not contenders yet. So here we are. Who do we
But I
draft? Who do we get?
I think we can be. And so this is going to take me to, obviously I'm just looking at the box score right here. So I want to scroll down to something because you look at this and yeah, I mean, Bryce was 19 for 34 from 191. Chuba was 14 to 21 for 108. 20. No, that was Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry. Chuba was 26 for 92 and one touchdown, and Saquon Barkley went for 124. So obviously, the biggest need is going to be the game, like the run defense, right? And so
Yes.
I will say this though, man, and I was listening to that Spaces earlier, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and like there was kind of it was literally 50-50 split down the middle about what people felt about Avero. I'm on the side of this, man. I said this on my last live. I think the most important thing for the Panthers to do, and you talked about it, like what is interesting to the Panthers after the offseason, well, when the season ends? Well, it seems like that's the most interesting time for us, as of late, because of
Yes,
just how horrible it's
absolutely.
been over the last few years. But I think the most important thing for us as a franchise moving forward is continuity. You have to bring back the same guys. It can't be like, all right, well, I'm going to scrap Joe Brady and bring in Ben McAdoo, right? Or I'm going to get rid of Steve Wilkes and bring in Frank Reich. Well, I'm gonna let Frank Wright go and let Thomas Brown call plays, and then I'm gonna scrap him and then let
Right. Yeah.
the special teams coordinator be your head coach. No,
Yeah.
you have to at all costs have some continuity. Now, you and I talked about this earlier. There is a name out there that some people have suggested. Hey, if this name is called, it'd be hard to say no. That'd be Robert Saleh. But in my
Mm.
opinion, we don't have two of the best players on this Panther team, period, not just on defense, in Shaq and Derek Brown. And it looks like we just lost J.C. Horn, maybe, and we'll get to Jonathan Brooks in a minute. But the fact that these guys are playing hard, man, like they're playing hard, they're playing disciplined. Like I heard, somebody say like they're playing hard in spite of, their offense or their defensive coordinator. No, they're playing hard because they're put in position by their defensive coordinator. Like Avero is doing the best that he can with what he has. And you got a lot of young guys, and these guys are developing. Now, does that mean that Avero is going to turn the corner and become great? No, I don't know. It's hard to say, right? But I would rather take my chance on that than to bring in another person that you got to learn a whole nother defense. I mean, Keeb, you know it, man. You've worked enough jobs as a young person. When you have, like, if you go to a new career, right, and you start learning something, the more continuity you have and the more muscle memory you build, right, the easier it's going to be for you to be able to not only take over the task that you've been, the beginning task, like when you're training, because things eventually start to slow down for you. But then you kind of move forward and you're just like, okay, you could add more onto the plate. So imagine like it's possible that Avero is just wanting to do that. Like, hey, in the offseason, now I want to add more wrinkles into the defense. Now there's some more things that I want to try because you guys have a keen understanding of what I'm looking for. And then we can add in some players that will help that cause even more, right? So I would like
Sure.
to see that stay together. That's just me personally. But, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, you look at the team stats, man. We had 302 yards to their 292 yards, but the difference was the turnover. Hey, Bryce tried to make a play, overthrew, threw an interception that led to points. Can't do that. Got to protect the ball. But all in all, I like what I saw today. What do you say?
Yeah, I wouldn't really allude to it was the turnover. It was more the fact that we can't seem to overcome our limitations, and every football team deals with turnovers, right? Every football team deals with certain matchups they just didn't account for, but good football teams or great football teams is the ability to adapt to the opponent on the field, right? You can throw your turnovers, but are you consistently giving your quarterback the looks that you need?
Mm-hmm.
And we aren't consistently doing that. Now, um, in particular, Bryce Young was bound to struggle with a really good defense. This defense is respectable, so bound to struggle. Where do you go from there, right? Again, you alluded to Leggett, and he's developing. There throughout the year, there's been some moments where it's kind of like, Leggett, you got to go out there and just go catch that ball. Or, hey, number 19, you got to be a little bit faster than that. You know what I mean? As a veteran, you got to go out there and pump your legs. Come on, man. Like, it's one of those things, right? It's like you need to have the personnel on the team to go out there and give your quarterback the looks. We initially thought it was Bryce Young in the beginning of the year, where it's like, hey, maybe he's not, this is a sophomore year for him and he's just not developing. Well, it's not the case. These last few games, he was playing great. But when your opponent is just on another level than you, whether it be coaching or your personnel, it's just this is what happens, right? And we just have to we got to move on and see what happens. It's one of those things. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question real quick. You ever heard those stories before of like when somebody sees like say you got a car, and
Sure.
Perspective in life is everything. Let's just say you drive a car that's like you think in your mind is a jalopy, right? It's old, it stinks. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you never vacuum it out. You don't never, put shine on
Right.
the tires. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
just trash all in it, everything like that, right? How come it takes people from outside to look at what's happening inside and be like, yo, do y'all realize what you got? Like, check out my man, Angry Cowboys fan, right? So, Angry Cowboys fan is a really close friend of mine for a long time. And so he said, way to hold Hurts to 108 passing yards, held A.J. Brown to 43 yards. This is something to build on. Man, do people
Sure.
realize this is the third time that we've heard something that similar going into a game? The same thing with Kansas City. The same thing last week, right? This has been a consistent effort by the Panthers, right? And it's just, you can see that there's something being built here. And my thing is, just like I saw Miss Paws in the chat said, yes, continuity. Man, if you break that up, you got to build it all over again. Look, this is what I'd love to see. I would love to see a world where Avero becomes Sean McDermott for us, goes on to his next spot and becomes great. Why? Because what does that mean for us? That means for us coming in the next year, we're going to have one of the best defenses in the league. And you make a few right moves. I mean, you had to, kind of catapult Shao Smith Wade into a starting spot today. That was something that he probably wasn't expecting, but hey, you got to be ready for it. But he's somebody that's going to continue to develop. But when the injuries start to mount up, what are you doing to combat that? And in the beginning, yes, it was awful. And look, I get it. Saquon Barkley got off today, but 126 yards compared to what he's done to other teams this year. I mean, people don't realize, like 124, I'm sorry. People don't realize, this dude getting ready to break, it's a good chance he's going to break ED's record. Now, some people look at it weird because they're like, he did it in 17 games as opposed to 16. I don't know how they're weighing that because I don't pay that close enough attention to it. But I saw it today, and I was like, that's pretty significant because the last person that got close was Adrian Peterson. That's who we played today and held to 22 points. That stands for something. That's coaching. That's not just, man, when I'm telling you, people need and love to be led. You can't tell me that these players are just going out there like, hey, you go here, you do this. There ain't no Luke Kuechly on this team, man. Nowhere, right? So we don't have that kind of field general out there just, where if things kind of can mask some of your deficiencies as a D coordinator. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we've had a conversation about this for a long time. It's where trendsetters in terms of your head coach who brings the energy. Yeah, Dave Canales is a really nice guy. He comes off as a smart guy, and he riles up the team. But I've always admired the Lions and their ability to be who they were about 5-6 years ago to who they are now. I mean,
Yeah,
and that all starts with the head coach.
absolutely.
Dave Campbell, when you watch
Dan.
his post, Dan Campbell, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
uh, Dave Dan, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
It's when you watch some of his locker room videos and how he, everybody made fun of that guy when he came in and said we're gonna bite people's kneecaps and whatever he said, and everyone was like, what the heck does that mean, right? But it's the ability to go out there and just give it your all for a guy, run through a wall for him. That is the catalyst. And unfortunately, you can't really do anything about like your head coach, but you could definitely do something about the players and morale. I mean, I remember what last two games ago, um, Bryce Young goes in and rushes for a TD, and the offensive line is out there, give him put a crown on him, high fiving him. That's the
Mm-hmm.
morale. That's and that means everything to a team who's building. That means everything to a team. And I agree with you when you said that sitting him wasn't the correct move. And you can't tell me you can explain to me all day, but I don't buy into the fact that you sat him down and all of a sudden he turned into a whole different person. I don't believe that. I believe the fact that okay, maybe it could have like I said, like, your job is on the line. Go out there and just give it your all. Throw to the plays that you weren't throwing before. But it to the credit of this team and Bryce Young really going out there and putting it all. I think this, like you said, consistency. Keep doing that, and you'll be fine, right? People can get upset at these small games, but it really doesn't matter in the long run if we aren't learning from it, if we aren't going out there. And injuries is something you can't control either, John. You can't control with one of your best players is out throughout the entire year, and you have to. We don't even know what type of team will be on defense when he's back. You know what I mean?
That's a good
So
point.
let's just get out there and this is who we are as a team right now. Once he comes back, and God knows, right? God knows who we will be with 11 picks. We're sitting with 11 picks. We don't have to trade back a billion times like we used to do before. We can trade up now. We can put packages together. We have, and credit to our guy who works out the money. We have what 1 million, like a little over 1.4 million dollars in dead cap money. We used to have like well over to $20 million in dead cap. So we are sitting in a really good place when it comes to next year when we get our how much money we can spend
Hmm.
on free agents, how much we can the contracts that we can give. There are a few players on our team who are playing on contract years, so we'll see. But we have everybody in the chat is saying we have the opportunity to build something. So there's really no point in getting upset now and just a lot of people on Twitter like to go on and on about, hey, it's like the world is melting down. We lost the game. Yeah, we did, but we learned a lot too. We learned what we need to do for the next game, and let's just move on.
I agree. So, want to stop real quick and just thank y'all for tapping in with the One Carolina show. Look, we've got like 40, 50 people, something like that, 51 people in the chat right now, but we only got 16 likes. Please do me a favor and smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I'm sure you will enjoy it over here. I know that you will love it over here. But yeah, smash that like button for me. So, hold on. I want to look at something real quick, man. So, I hate to even like single this out, but I'm gonna do it anyway. But this is full-time Dame. He said Xavier Legette made these plays routinely with Rattler last year at SC. I don't know what's going on, but he got to snap out of this. Tough grabs always his thing. I agree, but I think that that's a layered tweet because I have seen some of the stuff that Mr. Dame has had to say about Bryce, so that feels a little layered to me. But hey, we'll leave it where it is. But I agree. I think that Bryce Young definitely has to continue to do everything that Xavier Legette to get better at hands catching, and I think he will. I think it's just going to be a developmental process, man. That's all it is. So, but yeah, man. Like I said, man. I love the direction that this team is going in. I love that you see fight from these guys, and this ain't gonna do nothing but just continue to get better. And so we talked about it before. So we talked about draft, and you mentioned to me now. I want you to plug. So you're doing writing right now, and I don't know if you have this ready, but I wanted you to plug it to the audience that you're actually getting ready to start a open forum blog. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it is ready, and a makeshift logo I'm still working on, and I know we talked about doing the logo, but a lot of things are kind of coming together in different places
Mm-hmm.
at different times. But it's an open forum blog, really just putting my thoughts out there. I did YouTube, had a channel, you know, did multiple. We talked about things on. I came on your channel. We did a few episodes together, and really just writing seems to be like just a passion for me, like something I'm working on something, and I'm on my notes app just like typing away at ideas, and that's how I was like I settled on it. I'm like, I'm gonna really go through it, and yeah, just create a blog and write some articles and share it on Twitter.
That's dope. That's dope. I'm really excited about that, man. I can't wait to see how that comes out, man. In any way that I can contribute, if it's just plugging you, if it's just pause, whoa, big pause, yo, or just contributing in any way. I'd love to be able to do that. But man, I don't know if you can see this on the screen. Man, look at this play, man. This is what I'm talking about, bro. Like this, the stuff when you and I sat and watched all that film of him at Bama, and look, there's guys on this team like when this drive was happening, I'm like, there are dudes out there right now that remember seeing this firsthand. N'Kobe Dean's out there. He remembers. Jordan Davis remembers. Keely Ringo remembers. You know what I'm saying? Like Nolan Smith, he remember. There's some dudes out there that was present for that 420-yard SEC championship, which, speaking of, man, I don't know if you saw this, if you saw the tweets, and I don't have it pulled up right now. I'm not going to pull it up. But, man, the SEC championship game, like, they were showing tweets of the attendance. Man, it was pitiful. It was pitiful. Now, I don't know if that was, maybe like during concessions or if, they were trying to do it like before the game started or whatever like that. But like you look throughout the Mercedes-Benz Dome, man, it was like, it almost looked like there was nobody there. Like it was nuts.
Yeah, it seems to be a weird year for sports. Basketball is down. College football is kind of weird right now.
Looks like we got a Eagles fan in the chat. Raheem Hand said, "Great tough game. Fly Eagles fly." Yeah, salute to y'all. But we should have won.
Yeah, for sure. But John, it seems like I have to step out. I'm gonna try to join back in the next few years. How long are you gonna be alive for?
Man, I will be here. I'm just chilling right now, man. So I'm just going through talking points, just looking at some stuff. I'll be here for a while. So if I'm up and you want to tap back in, tap back in with me.
All right, for sure. All right, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Salute to my guy Key for showing up, man. I appreciate him. I appreciate y'all, man. I want to respond to some of these comments. I see it looks like it's a back and forth going on between a couple of people in the chat that I want to go back and look at. Maybe I can speak to some of this stuff. Chuba did break 1K today. Yes, Metal Crip. He did. So Chuba hit the 1,000-yard point today. Salute to Chuba. Cardi said you just don't like Bryce. Me? Man, come on, bro. Go look at my content. I don't think you're talking to me, though. I think you're talking to somebody else. Khalil Wesley, Carl D. I highlighted a comment earlier from Khalil, so I want to go back and see what he's talking about now. But Carl D. I was about to say Cardi B. Carl D. Bryce start. We won 2 games last year, 2 games this year. This was a setup to fail. I'm confused. I don't know. Set up to fail as in you think that the Panthers set up Bryce to fail? Like, hey, I would probably be on board with some of that. But I'm not sure exactly what you meant by that. But salute. Joe Clarity says somehow Texas versus Georgia just doesn't do it like it did in Austin earlier this year. I agree. When you see that matchup one time before, like, for example, when I was just talking about the SEC championship game, like, I really do think some people are kind of like, this whole playoff format is going to be an adjustment for some people, especially like when you consider that Alabama, it was kind of known going in that, certain teams wouldn't make it. So the attendance looked a little weird because it was like, hey, what's the point of even being here if we're not going to get a shot? But as far as Texas, Georgia was concerned, we kind of knew that both of those were going to make it regardless of who won that game. So if you play a team twice like that, it's got to be you got to know that it's going to be a light show when you come out there, right? So when the first time when Bama played Georgia, when Bryce was, I think his first year starting, they played in the SEC championship and then they played again in the national championship, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it just didn't really feel like. I feel like if like Arch Manning was starting, it would have been a different story. So, Metal Crip says I was ready to move on from Bryce after week 2. That car wreck really let him prove himself. Him. I talked about that, and I said that I personally, and I know people would probably disagree with this, and that's cool. I think benching helped, but I think that benching plus the car situation allowed him to gain buy-in. You remember when Dave Canales said, look, Bryce is basically making the statement himself. I don't have to worry about coming out here and telling you if he's starting anymore. That's not something that they even talked about, in this press conference from this point forward. So it's like, I don't have to come out here and say like, hey, yes, he's definitively my starter. Nah, I mean, he, kind of proving the point, Now, do I think that him being sat after those 2 games, I still think that he would have probably developed until what we see right now. I think that they had to make some moves. Obviously, I think that Deontay Johnson had to skedaddle out of town, right? Maybe that's part of it. We don't know. But has it helped? And will I give credit where credit is due? I guess I have to. Yeah, to some degree. But I was never one of those people that was willing to give up on him because even with the benching, Like, you get benched and you come back. Most people that come back from that, and this was why there was such an uproar from the national media whenever he was benched, right? Which I'm going to be honest, I kind of love this in a way, because what it does is, like, it allows for the story arc to become that much more impactful. You know, he comes back, he starts playing amazing, and it's just like, cool, yeah, we got one, right? And it allows the story to become even more impactful than it was already. But, like, when you got it in you, you just got it. Most people to get benched like that, like I said, the media perspective was so loud because it's like, yo, when you bench somebody like that, that's usually it. Like, they're not coming back from that, right? So, yeah, that's that. Joe Clarity said, as a Gamecock fan, I love that Alabama got booed out from the playoffs. Can't lose twice against unranked teams. Yep. Bump Bama. Clemson town, baby. Anyway, back to stats. So, I was going through this. Let's go through the full box score. Saquon Barkley, 20 carries for 124 yards. His longest was 18. I know this is going to sound crazy, and most people will be like, yo, 209 yards rushing for a team is horrible. But I kind of felt like it was bend and not break. We allowed them to do what they were going to do anyway, regardless. But we took away everything else. You know, my boy Jason talked about it. Angry Cowboys fan, he talked about it. A.J. Brown, 43 yards. Devontae, 37 and a tud. Grant Caltera, his first tud of his career, right? But this wasn't something like you can easily see those guys get off at any given moment, and that didn't happen. So I love that didn't happen. So it's like, all right, we're going to give you everything that you want from a rushing perspective. We're going to take away any other kind of threat. And I mean, they had some plays in big moments, especially on some drives. But for the most part, we're going to hold our own. And that's exactly what happened. They held their own against the best rushing team and the number one defense, and came down to the wire, should have won that game. Right? I love what I saw from Tommy Tremble. I think Tommy Tremble's a guy you keep on the roster. I'm rolling with Tommy Tremble. I'm rolling with JT Sanders. We talked about that before. Adam Thielen is your sure hand. That's a guy that I'm keeping in the locker room as long as he wants to stay here, as long as he wants to play. If the production is going to continue to look like this, I'm not moving on from him. Why? Because he is going to be paramount for the development of the other guys. Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, and whoever they decide to draft. That'll be excellent to see moving forward. That's what you want to see. You want to see him be able to come in and mentor guys. And then I'm going to give, Andy Dalton some credit. I love this because I'm old enough to remember when Andy Dalton got signed by Chicago, and there was that whole quote about, I'm not really here to, mentor Justin Fields. Like, my job here is to come and try to play. Obviously I'm going to be a backup, but I have no interest in, mentoring this guy. Right? And it's kind of like when you look at it, like he knows, like, all right, I'm seeing this play. I can take refuge in knowing this. Remember, I played that clip. This was a few videos back. You have to go watch those videos to see. But I played a clip of Patrick Mahomes talking about Alex Smith and how paramount Alex Smith was to his development, about how when he got there, he didn't even know how to line up correctly, right? So there were small things like that. I remember there was a play where Bryce Young was lining up and Miles Sanders kind of had to push him a little bit to get him in position, right? And then he talked about like how Alex was just like the consummate professional, how he trained himself in the offseason, how he prepared, how he studied film. All these different kind of things started to happen that would help Pat. And look, Alex knew. He saw the writing on the wall, right? And this is the difference in the situation. This is what makes it so significant. Alex was actually bred for that because he had been through it before. Alex was in San Francisco, got hurt, and then got benched. Colin Kaepernick comes in, starts playing well, and there really is a thing, and this was what was so worrisome for me about Bryce. There is a thing that exists, man. Like, it don't matter how well you play. if you didn't get drafted by that coach or that GM, if you came into a situation where, hey, I took over a job and this is the quarterback that I inherited, if that is not my guy, it is not my guy. Alex Smith was 12-4 with San Francisco and got benched for Kaepernick and going into the next season. And they had a winning record, right? So they could have got to the Super Bowl with him. It was very possible. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, Kaepernick went crazy against Green Bay, and that led to it. Went crazy against us in the divisional game. But the point is like he had gotten that far before. They almost beat the Giants and went to the Super Bowl, right? So I just hope that that's not what the story is here. But back to Andy Dalton. I love that Andy has kind of embraced this like role of being like, you know what? Because every time Bryce comes off the field, that's the first person you see. He ain't standing over there with his helmet on or trying to be all, passive aggressive or anything like that. Nah, I'm embracing it. This your team now, dog. It's all you. They drafted you number 1 overall for a reason. Maybe if things would have went different, maybe if I don't get into a car accident, then maybe I am still starting. I don't know. Maybe this becomes my team for the rest of the year. Maybe we have a winning record. Who knows? I doubt it. I think it'll probably still be the same. I would argue it'd be worse. But I'm embracing the role. And in the confines of history, I love the fact that this is happening because these kind of moments can be legacy defining for you and can open up other opportunities for you even when you think it doesn't, right? I remember Chris Carter saying this one time. Never will forget this. And y'all make sure to smash that like button. I appreciate y'all being here with me. But I remember Chris Carter saying one time, he was talking about Kelly Bryant. Kelly Bryant had bounced from Clemson and went to Mizzou and, kind of looked okay in the beginning, but then kind of flamed out because, Trevor Lawrence came in and you got a, generational college talent, right? There's no way that this guy's not eventually going to take over. And he took over sooner than it was planned, right? Trevor Lawrence goes on to win title, goes to another, national championship, salute to him. But I remember Chris Carter talking about when Kelly Bryant decided to transfer, and this was before like NIL was big, all this kind of stuff. He was like, man, listen, you had an opportunity. Like, why did you do that? You had a chance to be a legend at Clemson, right? And who did they end up going to? It went to Chase Bryce. Why did they go to Chase? Because Trevor went down in a meaningful game against Syracuse, and Chase Bryce came in and won that game. If that was Kelly Bryant, he would be locked into history because that was a title year against Alabama. So I love to see that Andy Dalton is embracing this role, even though there still might be a feeling inside of him like, look, I'm probably not going to come back here next year. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm under contract, I may try to force myself out because I still think I have something to give as far as being a player is concerned based on what I showed on tape this year, right? But at least what we're seeing is like an embrace of like, you know what? Hey, I'm going to be there for you. Look, I want you to succeed, love you like a brother, and I'm going to do everything I can to help, which is a far cry from what we saw in Chicago. So salute to Andy Dalton. Man, y'all make sure to smash that like button. I appreciate y'all being here today. Go through some of these comments. We get it with Dak as well, so I feel what you mean. I'm not sure what that conversation was. My apologies. Alex Smith was hurt. When Cap took them to the Super Bowl, they had no choice but to stay with the hot hand. I agree. Yes. They had no choice at that moment to stay with the hot hand. Yes. And Angry Cowboy said, FYI, though I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm from NC, so I root for your Panthers, but not next week. Hey, I'm getting at you next week, bro. I promise. Man, we can do a live and watch the whole game at the same time, bro. I'm all for it. Yes, Alex Smith was hurt when Cap took over, and after it took them to the Super Bowl, they had to stay with the hot hand. Yes, that's right. I remember that, right? So Alex Smith gets hurt. Colin Kaepernick started against, I believe it was the Saints. And, the offense, it just looked more potent, with him in because you had the running ability. It was a lot of the same RPO kind of stuff that you're, seeing now. They were kind of early with that, just like Carolina was early with it with Cam. And, I think back all the time, man, I'm like, man, can you imagine if the NFL would have been more open to the idea? And I think there's a, I don't want to put on this conspiracy hat, but there's a reason why it took so long. Like, I don't know if you can trace this back specifically, but I do think that there is Cam Newton kind of revolutionized the way the modern game is played in a lot of ways, because the year that he was drafted, I think the lockout season was happening and the players couldn't have playbooks. So Gene Chizik sends his playbook to the Panthers, and a lot of those same plays that we saw, a lot of that zone read, that we saw Cam run at Auburn, we seen at Carolina, and it was wildly successful. So then the next season, the Shanahans tailor a very similar offense for Robert Griffin, and the rest has been history. So now it's kind of opened the door for what you're seeing right now. But what I was saying to, one of my homies was like, man, can you imagine if that would have been available to someone like Vic or Randall Cunningham, or, what I'm saying, all these guys, even as far back in, Steve Young, Tarkenton, way back in the day, if they were doing a lot of these, mesh and, zone read and RPOs and stuff like that, like some of these dudes would have absolutely shredded the league. It'd have been hard for them to adjust, because equally with adjusting with those kind of offenses, defensive players, their nutrition, their, training and stuff like that has become a lot different to be able to keep up with the pace of, offenses that can run at that kind of tempo and have those kind of, things that they can implement. So it's an interesting concept. But either way. So, yeah, next week we got the Cowboys. I'm excited about that game. I think that's a very, very winnable game at this point. Here's what I hope doesn't happen. I hope that the Panthers don't play down. And I say this respectfully, angry Cowboys fan. I hope that the Panthers don't play down to where Dallas is currently at. I hope that it doesn't become like a, hey, man, we played well. We contended with some of the big dogs. You know what I'm saying? And now we're just going to kind of like, yeah, look, we're 3-10. We ain't going nowhere. Yeah. I really hope that doesn't happen. I hope we show up. I hope it's a super competitive game. I think it can be. So, said, you're a BFF today, but next week, our enemies. I agree. That's my man. But yeah, next week, it's up. But either way, man, I didn't plan on going live today. I set the thumbnail and I was like, man, I don't know, man. I want to go live, but I'm not sure. I had a lot of things going on, but I wanted to tap in anyway, regardless. I'm excited that I did. I got a chance to talk with Keeb, and, we had some good conversation. This is something that'll happen more, really soon, but I am going to tap out. I may come back and go live again later this evening. Don't know yet, but either way, man, I'm excited. I see some stuff that I think can be building blocks for the future, but I also see a lot of things that are, very concerning. I saw one play in particular. There was a 3rd and 8. We went for it on 4th down, it was like a 4th and 2, and I think there was like a pass to Adam Thielen that got blown up, and then we ended up getting the ball back. They had to punt. So the last drive, the drive before that, I felt like we had an opportunity to, kind of go down and have a better drive. One thing that I hope, and I think this is happening week by week, I really hope that Dave Canales is starting to build more trust with Bryce Young, because I don't like the fact that I feel like in certain situations there's still kind of an apprehension of like, And I'm like, when you see a drive like what you saw at the end of that game, open it up, man. On a 3rd and 8, after he's converted 43% of 3rd downs, man, let him rip it. Like, don't hold back because of some like belief that, maybe he'll turn back into the pumpkin. Like, nah, he's shown right now, like, to me, and this is where I do agree with some of the people in the chat from earlier. I agree that Bryce has turned the corner and shown like, look, I'm your guy. I'm the guy. I am the guy that y'all drafted. You can build around me now. It's okay, right? And even if he's not the guy or not your guy, at least he provides a stability at the position that you have been trying to fill forever. And that's more than we can ask for at this point. So, all right. I appreciate y'all tapping in with me. I'm going to jump off here. I am John from the One Carolina Show. Look, I'll see y'all again at some point later in the week. Definitely more content coming out. Collaborations with the Angry Cowboys fan, because it is Cowboys week, y'all. And you know what time it is. Keep pounding.